keep it alive through these lines I write. I keep it live cause I thrive. I might just blow your mind tonight. I'm so hyped, but it's no hype. From this height, it's direct hits on sight. I'm your type, lend me your ears to show you that there's something in me. I'm not giving up, I'm standing right here, holding these days hostage. And I'll make this my year. We turning fear into love, and the love's in the air. I love doing this cause nothing compares. Nothing can share that same type of feeling when you feeling them flares. They can't catch it, it's havoc. I rip to a tear, switch a scenario. My stereos, I leave them impaired. Variables start to change and they're all in my range. I just gotta grab it, it's all mathematics. Every step is drastic, I make it fantastic. I'm trying to take your breath away. Asthmatic.
This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo.
Yeah, just nod your head with it, so explicit and vivid. Every image is intricate, intimate. I put my all into it, no scrimmage and no rules. I'm a pro tool, hear my heartbeat, beat into the vocals. I'm so loco, lost my mind, oh no. It's ponderoso, dope, so no overdose, cause it's dope, yo. Man, this is house grown, mixed with some milestones. So I let the style flow down like the Dow Jones, bringing it with some foul tones, letting the crowd know we getting loud, so it's eardrum rudiments. Yeah, we bring it rude again. Move, little hooligan. Music for tuning in, full time to the 10. I'm on my clock like I told you. I'm doing this for dreams we pursuing.
It's Monday night, and I don't know who won that debate, but I'll tell you who lost. The American people lost that debate because it was nothing but a bunch of fluff. I mean, really, nothing really legitimate covered at all, nothing that we didn't already know. I mean, just more and more of the same stuff. We're going to be talking about this much anticipated debate tonight because, there was expectations of like 100 million people watching this thing. I'm not sure if they watched it because they hate the candidates so much because, we got to keep that in mind. These two candidates are the two most unliked candidates in modern political history, and there was just a huge frenzy surrounding this debate, and so we're going to be talking about our takeaways from the debate tonight. We're going to have a cool panel set up. We're going to be taking callers from the audience as well. Anybody listening tonight can call in. If you do call in, make sure you keep your microphone muted, and then we'll come to you based on your area code. If you call in and we hear noise coming from your end, we're going to hang up on you. You can call back, but like I said, mute the microphone. The call-in number is 718-717-8296. That being said, make sure you catch us 5 days a week here on ucy.tv and theantimedia.org/radio. I'm here with my panel Monday and Wednesday, a bunch of different hosts throughout the week, but we're talking about a bunch of different topics here on the Anti-Media: politics, local stuff, international stuff, geopolitics, foreign policy, the wars, the cops, everything. We're covering it all. We're taking calls all the time. Anyway, that being said, let me introduce my panel. I've got my longtime co-host on the line, DB Schwartz. What's up, man?
Hey, Nick. Just recorded that whole thing from a Hofstra feed, so it was interesting to see. A little bit unedited, but delayed. But, yeah, man, I think we all lost on that one tonight.
Oh, man, yeah. Just a really topical debate. I mean, no depth, no policy. But what really were we expecting? This has become the state of U.S. politics. Never any legitimate policy, and when there is policy, it's many times creating more issues than it's solving. And just like one thing that was brought up tonight, the Iraq War. I mean, this is we went over there after 9/11 in the name of stopping terrorism, and we went and knocked over the Iraqi government, and terrorism has increased 6,500% since 2001, and that's not just terrorists weren't just randomly deciding to become terrorists and start blowing stuff up. They're reacting to our bad foreign policy, and it's disputed whether Trump supported the war or not. I mean, not that it really matters. It already happened, and the only solution these people are presenting tonight was to create more of the chaos, keep bombing and keep destabilizing these countries. I mean, both candidates are pretty much in agreement with bombing them and taking their stuff, their resources. And
There's one huge difference I noticed though, Nick, which was that of course Hillary was hawkish towards the Syrian problem and making sure we keep a no-fly zone, and what that means is she's trying to bite off more than we as the American people can chew. So just by default of total insanity of fighting Russia, Trump won the debate just because he didn't, basically say we should fight Russia like she was so bloodthirsty to say.
Yeah. Also joining us tonight is the amazing journalist Jake Anderson. What's up, Jake?
Oh, not a whole lot. Just watched the debate, and yeah, it was. I don't really know what my reaction to it is. I think it's really just the whole thing was just a setup to see if someone would crack under the pressure, or it was kind of like a battle of wits, a personality war. The policy discussion was all just smoke and mirrors, because we all know that nothing's going to change in terms of what's going on overseas, and nothing's going to change domestically. So really, the whole thing is just a dog and pony show.
It's a reality show, right? That's what this whole thing has become, and I think that's why so many people are so dissatisfied. Politicians are supposed to be people who are elected to have greater moral abilities than the average Joe. I don't know why else we have this idea in our heads that we should elect other people to do our bidding for us and give them our money and allow them to do stuff with it, other than the fact that they're supposed to be smarter and better at making decisions and better at handling complex situations. But the entire election so far, the presidential election at least, has defaulted to this kind of personality contest, and one of the biggest arguments tonight was whether Hillary Clinton has a presidential look. I mean, I can't believe that these kind of questions are being asked for the most, supposedly the most powerful job in the world. And that argument can be made as well, that the president is just a figurehead and a kind of like a symbolic position at this point in the United States. But, it really has become just a battle of personalities, and it's a reality TV show. And looking at it from that aspect, I have to agree with DB here that Trump wins. Trump is probably going to win all the debates because he's a master at reality TV. I mean, he's a veteran. He's been doing reality TV longer than he's been doing politics. And so he's good at this kind of media manipulation and, triggering emotional reactions in the audience. That's what TV is all about. And Trump has been doing that for a long time. And the people that have been running the show for a long time here in this country have really kind of degraded our politics to become this reality TV kind of sideshow and a big distraction. And the deep state is really running things behind the scenes. The big money players are really at the controls here. And the politics has become kind of just what we're seeing tonight. More and more of this surface level attacks on people's personalities and their looks and their demeanors and this, that, and the other. But we can't really. The funny thing here is that the media has been complaining about how Trump is just this soundbite type, say crazy things and get a bunch of media attention candidate. But they're the ones that really created this scenario to begin with, and that's to me what I find so funny. The powers that be have degraded our political system to a reality show. It's not to me, it's not surprising that a reality TV show, a reality TV star, is now gaming the system and is putting himself in a position to win. I mean, this is just so ridiculous that this is what it's come down to. I mean, it's just almost unbelievable. DB, did you get to watch the whole debate, or did you just catch parts of it?
Start to finish, yeah.
So, I mean, what part stood out to you the most?
Well, I mean, for me, Trump's just his his moment that he really sank the lowest was kind of his acceptance of stop and frisk, which has just already been shown that's just bullshit. So he kind of shot himself in the foot there. He's going to have to temper that. I mean, the tide's turning for our society. We're against tyrannical law enforcement, and that's why it shows like Clinton just cannot do anything but lie when she says the police are outgunned on the streets. I mean, that's the most asinine statement I've ever heard in my life. It just shows she's probably borderline psychopathic and really doesn't have any empathy for people. She doesn't understand. Cops are the military now, and the military is killing people on a daily basis, and it's a part of the stuff that she passed in the 90s. I mean, you can look back at that stuff. So, you know, we just have a joker and a psychopath that are running. I guess you have to ask yourself, which one would you survive most likely? Which 4 years would you survive most likely? I mean, literally.
Is that what it's become?
Yeah, I mean, if we get in a huge war or if we get in a civil war, I mean, what's a better chance of survival?
Yeah, that's a tough question. But yeah, I mean, that's a sad point. You know, we've come to the point now where we're looking at these presidential candidates as, you know, which one of these guys, you know, one of them is going to be elected because the media system, the media industrial complex doesn't give a chance to anyone in the third parties. I briefly wrote an article about this today. You know, over 50% of Americans would like to see third parties included in the debates. Over 50% would like to see Gary Johnson, and about 47% would like to see Green Party candidate Jill Stein in the debates. But, you know, the Commission on Presidential Debates has set these just onerous standards where the third parties can't be included in the debates. And so we're kind of limited to these really topical, superficial candidates. And, you know, that's what these two parties have become. The Republicans and Democrats don't have any depth to their policies. When it comes down to the stuff that they actually pass, the non-social policy stuff, foreign policy, economic policy, I mean, both parties are almost indistinguishable. They've become, you know, one big neocon, neoliberal party.
It's all the new Republicans now, right?
Yeah. You know, both parties are like the Republican Party now, but it just so happens that the establishment is favoring Hillary Clinton, which is the Democratic candidate in name only.
She's the globalist candidate versus Trump, who's the nationalist candidate. So you know the richest people want the globalist.
Yeah. You know, and that's why you see the money aligning and the neocon warhawks aligning behind Clinton. But, you know, going back to Trump here, as you mentioned, the stop and frisk thing, I mean, Trump basically was saying today that he's a hardcore in favor of law and order, whatever that means in particular. I don't know what his policy is on that. But the guy's been endorsed by a bunch of these police unions and stuff. I mean, looking at it from what I can tell, Trump is going to be a major authoritarian on the domestic front. I mean, stronger and stronger police forces, more militarization of the police. He's talking about, and I don't know if the NRA is going to jump on him on this or not. I doubt they will because they've endorsed him. But he's talking about stopping and frisking people, taking away their guns. You know, that does not.
You know what that means, Nick? Whose guns are they going to be taken away? Who gets stopped and frisked? I mean, especially in New York City. My buddy out there is a veteran, and he was saying, man, I'm just going to get rid of my firearm because I know they're just going to, you know, use it as an excuse because he's African-American, man, and he gets scared, you know, walking around. So, dude, it's going to be misused. Watch.
Of course it will be. Just like almost every other government program is done bureaucratically, and there's unintended consequences and sometimes intended consequences. So, you know, neither candidate really touched on the drug war. Clinton briefly talked about that we do have a problem of mass incarceration, which is obviously true. I mean, the United States, 5% of the population, we've got about 25% of the world's prison population. Clinton brought that up, but what she didn't bring up is that, yeah, as DB mentioned, she helped create that problem back in 1994.
Nick, what was it not ironic that both candidates looked like they were using different drugs heavily?
What do you think they were on?
Well, I mean, Trump was just sniffling the whole time, and he was hyped up at the beginning, and then he crashed. Then you saw Hillary right at the 50-minute mark hit a massive wall and get like that opiate daze going. So they have her on mad painkillers because she was messed up like 2 weeks ago, and couldn't even make it through the 9/11 memorial. And, he just came out hyped up, man. I mean, they got him ready. He had a ton of energy, and then he hit that yay wall.
Oh, man, that wouldn't surprise me. So, Jake, what stood out to you in this debate? I mean, did you take anything good from this, or was it just, all bad?
No, it was all bad. But what stood out to me is that, I was looking at it through the lens of kind of what you guys were just talking about, which is that, it's just one big entity now that is not only the parties, but our law enforcement and our military, like you've been saying. They're not just at war with terrorists. They're at war with anyone who would stand up against the establishment, and that's why the Frisk thing is troubling. And I don't know who's more autocratic. Who would be more autocratic at home? Probably Trump. I think probably what stood out the most to me was just the inability of Trump to, even though he was calling out the wars, they still, neither of them were getting to the root of why we've been in these wars to begin with. And until they can truthfully explain that to the American people, they're just lying. And, what Trump said was true. We've wasted trillions of dollars on these wars that could have been used, at least improving, some aspects of our domestic infrastructure. And instead, it's just been wasted. And that stood out to me. But, I mean, yeah, they both seemed like psychopaths during it. So, who knows what will happen in the next two debates. I think probably we'll see I think this one was pretty even. I'm hearing a lot of people saying Hillary won, but I think it was pretty even. I think we'll probably see a split of the next two, depending on the format of the debates. It's really just Trump is very combative, and both candidates have tremendous flaws, just unbelievable, horrible flaws, and it's really just a matter of who illustrates the other's flaws better. And tonight, I think Trump got dealt because I think Hillary was able to make Trump look worse on the tax issues, on the workers of his business issues, and the birther issue really made him look bad. So I think tonight it was Hillary won by proxy of Trump's flaws looking worse than her flaws, which is sad.
But if you research her emails and see that she signed off on genocide, then his tax doesn't look like shit.
Well, of course. No, the actual... Well, yeah, but I'm not, DB, I'm not assessing...
but I hope people research now because,
we know they're not, and we know that the American people, and particularly liberals, are not interested in the truth of what's actually going on. They're interested in winning. Ironically, they want to win, beat Donald Trump at his own game. Yeah, you're right. If you look at what Hillary Clinton has actually done, I don't understand why Trump is the one that's being called a dictator, even though he's not the one that's been going around, spreading economic imperialism like nothing we've ever seen before. And that was with Hillary not even in office. I mean, she's been a Secretary of State. Imagine as actual president how many wars we're going to have. But you're right.
It's a horrifying proposition because then you have Dan Quayle Jr. and Tim Kaine behind her.
Oh God, yeah.
Who's just a complete nincompoop. He makes Biden look like a fucking a genius. So I don't care if he can speak fluent Spanish. Guy is a muy puto.
Yeah, I'm really kind of having trouble articulating how I feel about the debate because I'm just kind of flabbergasted by it.
Yeah, man. I mean, I feel like everyone got a little dumber from watching it. I know I lost a few brain cells, though I got a few
I don't
laughs.
think it's dumber. I don't think it was dumb. It was misleading. It was misinformation. They're leading us down. They're making us. It's a sleight of hand trick. They're making us look in one direction when what's important is in the other direction.
Exactly. And you know what? Maybe some of these important issues would have been raised by some of these alternative candidates like Jill Stein or Gary Johnson. In fact, I saw that Jill Stein tried to sneak into the debate, and then she got caught by some reporter at USA Today, tweeted out and basically snitched on her.
She got stopped and frisked too.
Yeah, they probably stopped and frisked her, and they sent her packing.
What do you think she was going to do? Do you think she was going to heckle them?
She'd probably try to make a disruption or something, I'm guessing.
Did you hear the lady that yelled "Thanks a lot, bitch" when Hillary was talking?
No.
They edited it out, but it was on the live. It was on the raw Hofstra feed. Right in the middle of it, someone said, "Thanks a lot, bitch."
Are you
and they're
kidding?
talking about the Iraq War, yeah, and then they escorted her out. They just time delayed it.
Wow.
Now, Jill Stein was doing a live Q&A session during the debate, which I found actually, I was looking at it. It continued on after the debate, so afterwards I was looking at that, and like she was actually talking about substantive issues. And it brings me back to this idea about these alternate parties being barred from participating here. And this to me is just a huge slap in the face because it's just ridiculous to call this country a democracy when we're hand-fed two corporate choices and everyone else is kind of excluded, and we're led to believe that we're having some kind of choice between these two parties. Thankfully, a lot of the millennials and younger people are kind of not buying that. In fact, I heard that like 50% of millennials are considering voting third party. So, that's a positive.
Nick, do you think we should split up this country, like literally, to save our freedoms and democracy? Because otherwise, I feel like they're going to try to merge us with Canada and Mexico and make that giant North American crap.
Well, I'm a big believer in decentralization, and power corrupts, and the saying, absolute power corrupts absolutely, or whatever the damn saying is, the point. But, I believe in decentralization. I don't think we need super states anymore. I think now that the world is becoming technologically advanced and information is starting to flow more freely and people are getting more informed and more well aware that wars are mostly for corporate interest, greed, or pride, or a combination of those. People are starting to realize that we don't need these huge governments with huge armies and nuclear weapons to go around policing the world and stuff. That's a pretty popular idea. I mean, that's been popular since George Bush was first elected in the year 2000. I mean, he ran on that platform. And Obama, again, in 2008, after Bush flip-flopped and became the biggest policer of the world to date. And then Obama ran on the anti-war, anti-police the world platform. He became president. He flip-flopped and started bombing even more countries. Now you got Hillary Clinton coming along, who's actually advocating more intervention. I mean, think about the stuff that she'll be able to do and get away with when Obama ran on an anti-war platform and nobody held him accountable for all of his wars. Clinton's running openly, more aggressively on foreign policy. And so she gets into office, and we're talking about much more prospects of war, including nuclear war. She was up there today talking about how Trump is so dangerous on nuclear, on the nuclear topic, and I agree with her on that. But at the same time, she's just as dangerous, if not more, because she's actively prodding Russia, which is the biggest nuclear power outside of the United States. So,
Nick, can we have an all-liberal draft? I want to see that boot camp.
Oh, man. And so it is really sad that these other parties are excluded, because then we'd actually be able to talk about legitimate topics, or actually take these topics and have some kind of philosophical responses to them. Because right now it's just, he said, she said, his personality, her personality, her stamina, his temperament. It's just stupid little shit back and forth. I remember back in 2012 when they had the alternate party debates, and actually back then it was also Gary Johnson, Jill Stein, and a couple of other smaller parties. And dude, I remember watching those debates, and I swear I was getting like goosebumps because these people were actually talking about real issues and real solutions and real problems. Trump and Clinton are just kind of tinkering around the edges, and they don't really offer anything substantial as far as changing the status quo. I mean, Trump is hyping up all of this protectionist economic ideas, which in many ways are flawed. And he's talking about punishing companies that leave the country and stuff like that. On one hand, he's right. He's like, we shouldn't have an atmosphere in this country where people are trying to leave. But on the other hand, when you drive companies out, you can't sit there and punish them for leaving. And I think Trump, he makes a really good emotional appeal, economically speaking, because I think it's what a lot of people think is going on. But it's flawed, man. It's flawed. Protectionism is not the way to fix the economy in the United States. I think being more open is what we need to do, but we need to have not have this crony capitalist kind of civilization. Really, our entire country is built around crony capitalism, and that's what's causing the economy to be completely messed up. That's what's driving these countries out, these companies out of the country.
The biggest welfare queens, the military. Like, if we don't ever get a handle on that, I mean, if we don't ever go try to expand an empire endlessly and don't rein back in and just bring our military home to defend us like it was always intended to do, then we're never going to get right, because we're just going to have endless debt and wars we can't pay for and declining standard of living because everybody's struggling with student debt now. That's the biggest bubble about to pop, is a bunch of people are just going to, you can't even go bankrupt. You just get permanently stuck living in like rentals. So you can't sell homes anymore, so there's no more communities. I mean, it's a ripple effect.
Yeah, and the economic policies of the last several decades have been detrimental to the middle class, and it all came home to reckon in 2008. And we just everyone talks about the economy recovering and it's better now and stuff, but the economy is only recovered for the extremely rich, which control the majority of the resources and the property and the money and the businesses. For them, the economy rebounded more than what it was before. For everyone else, we're all feeling the pain, man. Everybody is. And so neither one of these candidates are truly addressing the underlying issue here. I mean, Trump briefly mentioned the Fed, but he didn't really talk about the real issue here. I mean, tinkering with the interest rate is one thing, but really addressing what the Federal Reserve does and how it is completely undermining the world economy and basically making sure we have to be the policeman of the world. I mean, neither one of these guys are talking about that, and that's something that Gary Johnson and Jill Stein would be able to address had they been included in the debate. And so that's what's so really sad to me, is that it's just more and more of this tinkering and bickering and arguing, and these guys are going to bicker and argue us to death.
I wish Gary Johnson would have been in this debate. He would have been like the biggest trigger for the other two you've ever seen.
It would have been amazing, and he should have been too. He's polling at 8 or 9%. He's right around where Ross Perot was at in '92.
I think he's at 12 now, Jake.
It's a lot of people that were going to go third party or defecting to him. If you ever needed an illustration of the absolute rigging duopoly of the media, it's that Gary Johnson is not in that debate. It's utterly obscene that we're not here. You have the biggest stage in the world. You should have a plurality of voices. You should have many, many different visions for how government could work or not work. Anti-consumerist voices, anti-drug war voice. I mean, there should be every kind of voice you can imagine up there discussing different visions of the country. And so we have the same crap we've been hearing constantly. This is exactly why no one gives a shit anymore, because of what we saw tonight.
So I got a clip that I want to play, and this it kind of feeds into what's going on with these third parties being excluded. And this is from Jesse Ventura, and those not familiar with Jesse Ventura, he was I think he was a former pro wrestler, but he was also governor of Minnesota for back I think in the 90s. And he ran as an independent, and here's what he was saying about how people were being excluded from the debates. Hold on a sec. Let me pull up this video. Where is it at? Oh, man. Now I'm not finding it.
Just briefly, he's way better than Franken ever will be.
Then who?
Franken.
Oh, Al Franken?
I used to love Al Franken, but then his fracking views really turned me off.
Yeah, well, he hasn't been able to get him up here past yet, and he's about to be railroaded out of his position pretty soon, so that's a good thing.
He's also pro-TPP, I think, Franken.
Yeah, he is, and then, like, everybody here has been just saying, man, you're going to gut the rest of our manufacturing and our middle class, like, get the hell out of here.
I did like Trump calling out. I love that Trump called out Hillary, saying you'll flip on TPP because everyone knows it's true.
Yeah, I mean, all you need to know is like there's just two big issues that she's gonna just be the total opposite of him on. One's TPP and one's war with Russia. So if they can currently happen, our economy collapses and then we have a huge war to fix our economy. I mean, it's just like they did in World War I and World War II.
Right.
All right, I think I found the clip here. Let me see if I can play this.
Well, I'll answer for myself first, and then I'll let Donald Trump answer certainly for himself.
It's not loud enough. I don't think you guys can hear it. Anyway, he makes a good point. Jesse Ventura made this point back in the year 2000. And this was after he had been governor of Minnesota, but. Basically what he was saying is that if the same rules had applied to him running for governor as the rules that apply to third parties right now, which is that you have to poll at 15%, he would have never been able to be in the debates. And so what happened was within 6 weeks of Jesse Ventura being able to join the governor debates in Minnesota, he went from polling at 10% to actually winning the election in 6 weeks. A lot of that was based on his debate performances, and so one of the things that really hit me about this is that part of the reason why these other minor parties aren't gaining more appeal and becoming major parties is simply because they don't get any kind of media attention. A lot of people don't even know about them. I mean, you go ask any baby boomer what they think of Jill Stein or Gary Johnson, I guarantee you 75% or more of them are going to say, who's that? I don't even know what that is. I don't even know what a libertarian is. I have no idea what the Green Party is. People don't even know who they are or what they are because the media literally plays the role of gatekeeper when it comes to these elections. And, looking at the people who vote, I mean, it's a bunch of older folks that vote and stuff, and nothing against them, but these people consume a lot of their information from TV, from CNN, from Fox News, NBC, CBS. I mean, these news outlets are not reliable or accurate in reporting on politics because they're extremely biased. I mean, the majority of these people outside of Fox News are deeply, deeply in bed with the Clinton machine. I mean, they're so biased towards everybody else besides Hillary Clinton. I mean, they treated Bernie Sanders as a joke. They're calling Gary Johnson and Jill Stein spoiler candidates as if they don't even matter. Like, the only role that these other candidates play outside of the Republicans and Democrats is to sabotage Trump or Clinton. And so these media outlets really play the gatekeeping role with the older voting bloc, which is the majority of voters. And it really is detrimental to the conversation because people are not being exposed to other ideas or to other philosophies. I mean, maybe it's time that people be exposed to the idea of non-intervention, once again. Maybe it's time to... back in 2008, the media was falling head over heels for Barack Obama and his non-intervention message, and now that message is just completely ignored by everybody in the media. I mean, you're called an isolationist if you don't want to start up another war. And so the biggest issue here, and this is something I realized back in 2012, and that's exactly why I started up the anti-media. That's why we have this program, is to provide an alternate view to the false reality that is given to us from the mainstream media, because they can't be counted on to give us the information that we need to make informed choices. Because right now they're telling us that our only two choices is a demagogue and a war criminal. I mean, do we really have to choose between those two, or is there a better option? There is a better option, but you know what? Unfortunately, this election, they're not going to have a chance because we still haven't made enough breakthroughs. There's still too many older people that don't do any research and literally just vote based on what they see on NBC and Fox. So, we're not going to make the breakthrough as far as winning an election with a third-party candidate or causing some kind of mass political awakening this time around. But I'm telling you, it's coming soon. The younger people are not buying this shit no more. And as I mentioned, 50% of the younger people are voting for the third parties because they are relying on alternate information sources. They're doing their research, and they're finding out what these people really stand for, and they're finding out what these people have really done. And that's the thing with Clinton and Trump. Trump by far says the most outrageous shit. If you take everything he says at face value, Trump is by far the most dangerous candidate out there. Now, if you look at Hillary Clinton's record, compared to what she says, Clinton is the most dangerous candidate because she's done a bunch of horrible, dangerous things that have jeopardized our national security, jeopardized our economy, jeopardized our rights, and a bunch of other things that, I can't even go down the list of all the things that she's done wrong and horribly wrong. And judging by that, what she's actually done, she's the worst candidate. I mean, we got a guy that says he's going to be horrible and a woman that's already been horrible. And, hopefully next election we're going to have a legitimate chance to throw a wrench into this two-party system, because as it is, it's unsustainable, man. These people are going to get us into a major, major war that we're never going to recover from. I mean, they've already decimated our economy with the Federal Reserve and with all this crony capitalism and inequality and stuff that we probably never recover from that. But in the coming years, we're going to be faced with the choice of starting a major, major war with some major superpower on the other side of the world where a bunch of people are going to have to go and die in. And if we don't open up our political conversation to different ideas, it's going to happen, and it's not going to be very nice. And I'll tell you what, all the people listening tonight, myself, I mean, I'm already looking forward and seeing if that happens to have plans in place to keep myself safe. And if things like that start happening, I'm not going to stick around and fight for Donald Trump or fight for Hillary Clinton in a World War III scenario against Russia and China. I'm not going to do that.
It may be quicker than we even think, or closer, because if you've been reading some of the press, TV stuff, and some of the Middle Eastern media, they're supposedly massing like hundreds of thousands of troops on the Syrian border in Saudi Arabia. And I don't know if somebody may want to fact check to see if any of that's true, but if you're talking about hundreds of thousands, you can't be talking about a drill. And so if you're talking about an invasion of Syria with that big of a force, there's only one way to repel it. And I think we all understand what that option is and what that becomes and how that becomes global right away, and how it cripples our economy immediately because the oil will quadruple or quintuple overnight. And people just need to be ready for that, It is a reality, and it could really happen very soon, and it could pop off right away, and no one will have any knowledge of it at all.
I think you're right, and I think all it takes is one terrorist attack. I believe it'll be a false flag, but not everyone believes in those. But all it would take is one major terror attack, and we're back in full-blown martial law. And my prediction, I don't like predicting these things. It's morbid. It's terrible. When Bush came into office, it was his, second year into office that 9/11 happened. And that paved the agenda for the next 8 years and really created an entirely new reality in America. And I think it's very possible something like that could happen in the very first year of the next president, and it would just, we're back at war again, and it'll probably be Syria. It'll probably be against Syria.
Yeah, I think you're right. I read this propaganda piece the other day over on the Daily Beast talking about how young people are just too naive to support Hillary Clinton, basically, is what they were saying. And, what they were saying is that we're just, us young people are too young to understand the threat posed by the Soviet Union, and to really, we weren't old enough to really, understand what happened on 9/11 and how scary the world is, and how dangerous it is to not be extremely muscular on foreign policy. The Daily Beast is a major liberal news outlet, and they're out here being extremely hawkish. I mean, like I said, the last two presidents ran on very non-interventionist platforms when they first got elected. Bush and Obama both. Now you got these, liberal standard-bearer websites looking extremely hawkish on foreign policy. I mean, they're gearing up to elect Hillary Clinton under probably the most hawkish, presidency, at least running on a hawkish platform ever, at least in my, memory. And so they're gearing up for something big, man, and they're putting in the propaganda work right now to stoke up this threat with Russia, and all this stuff about Russia hacking the U.S. It's all unsubstantiated stuff. Hillary Clinton is out there, and look, there's going to be all kinds of fact checking tomorrow, and it's going to mostly focus on Donald Trump. But Clinton is out there claiming that Russia is responsible for hacking into the DNC. There's no evidence. They've never shown a bit of evidence. Are we literally supposed to take Hillary Clinton's word for it? Nobody believes that. Nobody believes any of the shit she says.
Most people believe it was Seth Rich that provided the most of it.
A lot of people believe that, and WikiLeaks putting a bounty out for his for information on his death, and also Julian Assange making comments about maybe he was killed because he was the leaker. I mean, it definitely added fuel to those flames. And then the DNC preemptively is putting out statements whenever they know a leak is about to come out, blaming it on Russia. How can anyone believe what the DNC is saying after what we found out they did to Bernie Sanders? I mean, they cheated Bernie Sanders out of the nomination, and now we're supposed to sit back and just take their word for it that Russia is hacking into the DNC and to other U.S. institutions. They've not provided any proof. So this is just more and more, not only is it bullshit coming from the candidates, but it's being regurgitated by the media, and it's literally like just they're regurgitating government press releases.
The thing is, it was proven that Hillary's private server was hacked, so they would already have everything they'd ever need, and it wasn't just Russia; it was China, and it was basically any country in the world you can imagine with the technology. They could hack her private server. I mean, that was the dumbest thing ever, and it was obvious why she did it, because she's been bought.
She's been what?
I mean, she's been bought.
Oh, right.
You just give her enough money and you get a server code, maybe. Who knows?
I'll give you another good example of how the media is complicit in this. So you mentioned, Nick, how the older generation isn't, reading as much about third parties because, well, the main reason is because they're not as internet savvy, and that's the only way you're going to find out about third parties right now is through alternative websites like the Anti-Media. A couple weeks ago, this very interesting flood of stories came out, and they all happened on the same day as usual. And they seeded this story, and it was targeted specifically at liberal millennials. And the focus of it was that Jill Stein may be an anti-vaxxer. And for those of you who know, the kind of mainstream liberal people, they're very, very much against the vaxxer conspiracy. And I'm not claiming to believe one way or the other on that. The point of it is that they used this wedge story, and to fact check it, you can see that Jill Stein actually was not doubting vaccinations. She said she's skeptical of the corporations. But the point of it is that they seeded this story all across the internet, and I had friends from college who were, neoliberals spreading it. Literally, I had a friend who posted it and then at the end of his post said, "If you vote for Jill Stein, you're a fool." And they used that to a lot of people were talking about voting for Jill Stein, and then they used this story to then castigate anyone who's saying they're going to vote for Jill Stein. And that's just one example of how they do it, is that they flood the internet with these stories. And happened again this week with Gary Johnson, with him talking about how we need to be involved with interplanetary travel. They used that story to make him sound like a nut, even though it's actually a good idea. But it went all across the internet all week with stories about how Gary Johnson thinks we should go to other planets. And the point of it is to make him look like a freak.
Exactly. So, whenever the media does cover these people, it's to make them look bad. It's not like, oh, look at all these awesome policies and in-depth philosophical understandings that Jill Stein and Gary Johnson have on these major issues concerning foreign policy, the U.S. empire, mass incarceration, the drug war, monetary policy, economics, and all these amazing stances, which I'm not rooting for Gary Johnson or Jill Stein in particular, but they make Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton look like absolute pile of dog shit comparably. Philosophically speaking, these people are above and beyond anything I think Hillary Clinton or Trump can even think of. They can't. I don't even know if they could understand these concepts because Trump and Hillary both are so deep rooted in this American crony capitalist civilization that we built up. I mean, Clinton is the textbook crooked bureaucratic politician. Trump is the textbook, robber baron. And it's the revolving door. Trump has financed Hillary Clinton. Trump has financed plenty of politicians, and he's done corrupt backdoor dealings with plenty of small-time, local politicians to get buildings made and tax cuts and, zoning changes and all this shit that Trump has done. Clinton has been on the receiving end of that kind of stuff, whether it's through the Clinton Foundation taking money from Saudi Arabia, then giving them billions of dollars in arms, or whichever way you want to look at it. Trump and Clinton are both kind of cut from the same cloth. While Trump is on the financing end, he's the one that finances politicians. Clinton is on the receiving end. She's the politician that receives the finances and does the favors for the businessmen like Donald Trump. Gary Johnson and Jill Stein are not inside of that spectrum. They're outside of it. They have a whole different take on the way that we should be doing things, and that's what we need right now. And on that, on what Trump was saying was actually true. This country is $20 trillion in debt. The country is a mess. Our foreign policy is worse off than it's ever been. The entire Middle East is in disarray. Terrorism is at the highest point it's ever been. And we've got nothing to show for $6 trillion bucks spent. And on that point, he's right. But on the other hand, he doesn't give any solutions on how to fix it. He wants to rebuild the military. He wants to bulk up on nuclear arms. He wants to bomb the shit out of ISIS, quote unquote. All of the stuff that both of these people are talking about, while it may sound slightly different, and it may be delivered in a slightly different way, and yeah, they criticize each other on a personal basis. Both of their solutions are almost identical, And Trump's quote unquote plan to go after ISIS, although very vague, it is almost identical to what Obama has been doing for the past 8 years. It's nothing different. So these guys are both status quo, and anybody that's willing to challenge the system, even Bernie Sanders, is, people say he was a radical revolutionary. I think he was very moderate. Even Bernie Sanders had much better ideas than Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, but he was marginalized by the media as well, and then he was completely cheated out of the nomination by the Democratic Party. So it shows that this kind of good old boys club with the politicians, the two-party system, the media, the corporations, the military-industrial complex, they all rub each other's backs, and they want to keep the status quo in place, and they're going to do that until the very end, until it's too late. And it's up to us, really, the people that are understanding what's going on, to do something about it. And I don't care, I don't know what it's going to be what's going to be the spark that triggers the change. I don't know if there's going to be a million sparks out there that help trigger some kind of wildfire in the people's brains that change their, lead to some kind of political awakening or something. Something has to happen relatively soon, over the course of the next decade, I think, to the point where we need to have a radical change in the dialogue politically here, or we're going to find ourselves in the situation of either World War III or a collapsing empire, and possibly civil war, and the breakup of the United States, and people that we've been using our imperialism against for so long are going to be wanting to strike back and going to want to be getting even with us. We're going to find ourselves in a bunch of these really tough situations that are going to lead to the loss of life, loss of freedom, loss of economic security, which is already slowly happening, but it's going to accelerate unless we have some form of radical revolutionary change in the political system in the United States, because if not, it's not going to be pretty for our children and what they're going to have to be dealing with, the fallout of a bunch of just blind empire building kind of status quo that's been going on since World War II. I mean, something has got to give, or we're going to be in deep trouble.
You're right, and I think it's going to get it's going to probably get a lot worse before it gets better, Nick. I hate to sound like a negative Nancy here, but I don't. I read this article by Chris Hedges talking about how. I mean, the title of it is the police killings won't stop, and he's basically arguing that the infrastructure of the power elites right now is based upon killing with impunity, and they will not stop, and they will not give up power voluntarily. It will have to be taken from them. The organs, as Chris Hedges describes it, the organs of the deep state are so aligned right now that it would literally take a civil war to break it up right now. And I don't know if America has the grit for it, to be honest.
It may not be a choice, dude. That's the worst thing about it, is you look around at all the vulnerable people in this country, and it's going to be tough, man. It sucks, and I don't know about you. I know Nick's going to go south of the border, but New Zealand's looking pretty sweet.
Oh, yeah, man. Let's go to New Zealand, dude.
Farms are they're not too bad, man. They're reasonable.
I never thought I would be. I always looked at prognostications of doom as so hackneyed and cliched and stupid. I never thought I'd be one of those people. But when you pull the veil back behind what's happening, you realize that all of history is war, and any time between that is just waiting for the next war, and they use war to keep the wheels of civilization running, and so we're overdue for a world war.
Yeah,
if you're not moving. Oh, sorry, Nick, but I was going to say, if you're not moving to the Rockies in Colorado, you ought to be moving to New Zealand or somewhere similar.
I mean, the thing is that ever since the dawn of civilization, it's been kind of the boom and bust of empires, right? The empire has a bubble, it gets big, it pops, it falls apart, it gets eaten from the inside out, or it gets invaded from the exterior. And every empire that's ever existed in the world has fallen. And since World War II, the United States has been was the most prominent empire, with the Soviet Union competing against them as the only other competitor. The Soviet Union collapsed, whether from its own deeds or from exterior forces, just like every other empire has done. The Soviet Union collapsed in the 90s, leaving the United States as the sole remaining empire, and now China is looking like it's probably going to be the next empire. But the inevitable is going to happen sooner or later. The United States empire is going to fall, whether it's tomorrow, whether it's in a couple decades from now, or whether it's like the Romans where it's protracted out for hundreds of years and it just gets smaller and smaller and smaller until the only piece left is Washington, D.C. Sooner or later it's going to happen. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. But I think what needs to take place with this radical political shift that I'm talking about is, I think that now that we have the information and the education and the historical understanding, people need to finally do away with this idea of empires once and for all. We need to get done with empires. We need to get done with superstates, and we need to start slowly decentralizing the way that we govern ourselves back from superstates, which would be like the United States or the EU, China, Russia, these giant, huge states that encompass a bunch of different groups, a bunch of different cultural groups, ethnic groups, and niches, and all kinds of different things and factors that are varied in. They're all kind of all encompassed by these superstates. We need to start breaking these superstates down and start localizing our government. DB, you brought up at the beginning of the show if I would support the breakup of the United States and, break it up right down the lines of the current states that we have, California, New York, Texas, all break up into their own little municipalities or whatever.
Certain states would make sense.
Once we get past this idea that we need empires, in the next couple decades, once we finally get to that point where it's like, okay, we no longer need these huge empires because all they do is cause massive destruction, massive wars, and inequality and oppression, then we can start thinking about localizing our government and the way we govern ourselves to the point where eventually we evolve to the point of complete self-government, where every single person governs themselves and we don't need to have someone that's elected or a artificial intelligence program that we put in charge of us to tell us what to do and to tell us how to do our stuff, because sooner or later, eventually, I'm hoping that we can become so intellectually enlightened that we won't need that stuff anymore. We'll actually know how to be good stewards of ourselves, good stewards of the environment, good stewards of the planet, and be peaceful to other people around the world. Because we've got the technology and the abundance to where we don't have to kill people to take their stuff anymore. There's enough stuff for everybody. There's enough for everybody to live and eat. There's so many different technologies, whether it's vertical gardening, hydroponics, aquaponics, alternative energy, and 3D printing, and all kinds of hemp, and all kinds of different technologies that we just need to tap into. That we don't need to kill people to take their stuff anymore. There's enough stuff for everybody, but we have to let go of this idea of superstates, empires, and of this massive inequality that's going on. Because this inequality, people like Donald Trump that are like billionaires, so-called billionaires, they want to keep the system in place. Donald Trump is the type of person who finances these politicians. They want to keep the system in place, and they need people like Hillary Clinton that are political hacks that will keep the system in place for them. The corporations, the giant corporations, and the state, they go hand in hand. The corporations are the backbone of the state. And they need each other to keep each other alive and to keep each other relevant. And we need to start dealing and coming up with solutions that target both the superstates and the supercorporations and deal a lethal blow to both of them. Because otherwise, they're going to do everything they can to keep a hegemony over everybody else, up to and including nuclear World War III. I mean, that's...
And right now, the goal should be setting up templates for the next stage, because what the world needs right now is not revolution where, new people can come in and replace the old people. What the world needs is a transformation in consciousness.
Exactly, man. Because right now, if we had a revolution tomorrow, I mean, looking at the people in the United States who own all the guns, they go in and they knock out the government. They're going to put Donald Trump in charge of it or somebody like him. You know what I mean? It'll be a revolution that regresses us back to a dictatorship. And that's been the cycle throughout the democratic experiment. Looking back at Greece. Greece started as the Greek Empire. Before it became the empire, it was a democracy. It became an empire. They had a dictator. They had an emperor. It collapsed. And then Rome started out their republic. That became an empire. That collapsed. I mean, the cycle keeps repeating itself. The United States started as a quote-unquote democracy, a democratic republic, constitutional republic, whatever you want to call it. And we've quickly progressed to this point where we're borderline dictatorship. And we need to do away with these ideas and come up with better new solutions. Otherwise, we're repeating the same problem.
Yo, here we go through the stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo.